Hello, I'm Pauline Repp, Mayor of the City of Port Huron. In June of 2018, representatives from Diving with a Purpose appeared before the City Council with a proposal for a memorial to the Tuskegee Airmen. These African American air combat units gallantly served during World War II. The Tuskegee Airmen represented their country with pride and expertise, and many of their accomplishments have been recognized across the country. Extensive fundraising has been ongoing over the past couple of years, even with the interruption of the coronavirus pandemic. The necessary funds have now been raised to erect a monument in the International Flag Plaza area, just north of the Blue Water Bridge, a site not far from where one of their planes went down being lost. The city recognizes the sacrifices that were made by the Tuskegee Airmen and appreciates those that worked hard and raised money for this memorial. We are most fortunate to have this in our city, and we are proud to join others across the nation in recognizing the Tuskegee Airmen. We give thanks to these brave men who fought to protect our country, and we are proud to be part of the dedication ceremony that is being held in August. On behalf of the entire City Council, I would like to thank Diving with a Purpose for presenting this opportunity for the Tuskegee Airmen to be recognized in Port Huron, and also to thank all of those who worked tirelessly to see this plan come to fruition. And now, let's take a look at the history of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Brave, heroic, courageous, fearless. These are the men who helped shape a new world. These are the men who defied all odds, fighting not only for their country, but for their own place in 1940s America. These are the men who formed the Tuskegee Airmen. During the 1920s and 30s, the exploits of record-setting pilots like Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart have captivated the nation. Thousands of young men and women clamored to follow in their footsteps. But young African Americans who aspired to become pilots met with significant obstacles, starting with the widespread racist belief that black people could not learn to fly or operate sophisticated aircraft. This would leave many African American pilots to fly as stunt pilots in air shows to earn a living. In 1938, with Europe teetering on the brink of another great war, President Franklin D. Roosevelt announced that he would expand the civilian pilot training program in the United States. At the time, racial segregation remained the rule in U.S. armed services, as well as much of the country. Much of the military establishment, particularly in the South, believed black soldiers were inferior to whites and performed relatively poorly in combat. African Americans wanted to have the opportunity to show that they were just as dedicated and capable as whites. Under growing pressures by black newspapers such as the Chicago Defender and Pittsburgh Courier, Roosevelt announced in September 1940 that the American Air Corps will begin training black pilots. For the training site, the War Department chose the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Tuskegee, Alabama. The prestigious Tuskegee Institute was founded in 1881 by Booker T. Washington, also in Tuskegee, Alabama. The Institute and airfield were both located in the heart of the Jim Crow South. The program's trainees, nearly all of them college graduates or undergraduates, came from all over the country. In addition to some 1,000 pilots, the Tuskegee program trained nearly 14,000 navigators, bombardiers, instructors, aircraft and engine mechanics, control tower operators, and other maintenance and support staff. Known as the Tuskegee Experiment, later to be known as the Tuskegee Experience, the training of black airmen took a great leap forward in March 1941 thanks to a visit by Eleanor Roosevelt to the airfield. Charles Chief Anderson, then the chief flight instructor in the program, took the First Lady on an aerial tour, and photos and film of that flight helped publicize the program. In April 1942, the Tuskegee 99th Pursuit Squadron were deployed to North Africa, which Allies had occupied. The Pursuit Squadron flew missions in second-hand P-40 planes. These planes were slower and more difficult to maneuver than their German counterparts, leading to complaints about the pilots' performance by the squadron leaders. Rather than being shipped home, the 99th was moved to Italy, where they served alongside the white pilots of the 79th Fighter Group. In early 1944, pilots from the 99th shot down 12 German fighters in 2 days. This went a long distance towards proving themselves in combat. In February 1944, the 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons arrived in Italy. Together with the 99th, these squadrons of black pilots and other personnel made up the new 332nd Fighter Group. After this transfer, the pilots of the 332nd began flying P-51 Mustangs to escort heavy bombers of the 15th Air Force doing raids deep into enemy territory. The tails of their planes were painted red for identification purposes, earning them the enduring nickname Red Tails. Though these pilots were best known of the Tuskegee Airmen, black aviators also served on bombing crews in the 477th Bombardment Group formed in 1944. During this time, rumors that in more than 200 escort missions, the Tuskegee Airmen never lost an escorted bomber, earning them the title of the best escort group of the 15th Air Force. By April 26, 1945, 2 weeks before the German surrender, the Tuskegee Airmen had flown 15,000 individual sorties over 2 years in combat. They had over 111 aerial kills, an additional 237 kills on the ground, as well as the destruction of nearly 1,000 rail cars, transportation vehicles, and a German destroyer. In all, 66 Tuskegee-trained aviators were killed in action during World War II, while another 30 were captured as POWs after being shot down. Other Tuskegee Airmen also were lost, not in combat, but in some cases, training missions. During the middle years of World War II, Michigan was home to several African-American Air Corps units, including graduates of the Tuskegee Pilot Training Program, who would receive advanced training simulating aerial combat and bombing exercises over Lake Huron. The relative safety of Midwestern America, along with weather and geographical conditions that approximated what aviators would expect to encounter in Europe, encouraged the military to use airfields at Selfridge, northeast of Detroit, and Camp Skill near Escoda. In April 1944, pilot Second Lieutenant Frank H. Moody, one of the Tuskegee Airmen training at Selfridge, was doing a routine practice flight in his Bell P-39Q Airacobra. Lieutenant Moody crashed into Lake Huron. Moody had just fired 2 bursts into the water when small pieces were seen coming from the front side of his plane. The plane gave off a trail of black smoke, raised its nose slightly, but then cartwheeled into the lake 4 miles north of Port Huron, Michigan. Moody was killed and his body was recovered. In May 1944, the Army transferred the remaining Tuskegee fighter pilots from Michigan to South Carolina, essentially ending the Tuskegee presence in Michigan. This may have ended the story of the Tuskegee Airmen in Michigan as well as Moody, but in August 2014, a bad storm hit Lake Huron, sinking a barge and tugboat. As divers began to assess the damage for cleanup, they found themselves looking at Moody's plane. 70 years to the date it crashed into Lake Huron, April 11, 1944. Wayne Lasardi, an archaeologist and diver with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, led an expedition to Lower Lake Huron to examine the Bell P-39 Airacobra flown by 22-year-old Moody, bringing a close to Moody's chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen story. 18,000 Army air crews were killed during training in World War II, and at least 5 of those were Tuskegee Airmen planes that are still hidden somewhere out in the Great Lakes. The plan is for the recovered artifacts from Moody's site to be displayed in a memorial exhibition in the National Tuskegee Airmen Museum in Detroit. Funded by the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Campaign, this memorial will also recognize the bravery, conviction, patriotism, and sacrifice of the Tuskegee Airmen that died in service to their country along the beautiful St. Clair River in Port Huron. The Tuskegee Airmen not only proved themselves in battle, but culturally as well, proving to many that the color of your skin did not deter their courage, fortitude, and willingness to fight for what they believed in, to preserve the United States of America. These men stepped out of a racially divided nation and served side by side with other races. They were a group of men who were given a chance to break cultural barriers while also making their dreams of flying the skies come true. These are the men who defied all odds. These are the heroes who shaped a new world. These are the Tuskegee Airmen.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Project Fireside Chat Session. My name is Jessica Brown. I am the Director for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for St. Clair County Community College. I will be serving as your moderator for this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I will be introducing our wonderful panelists on this afternoon. I have Mr. Jay Heglar, is a founding board member of Diving with a Purpose and the Society of Black Archaeologists. Diving with a Purpose, DWP, is a professional advocacy organization that focuses on maritime archaeology and ocean conservation. DWP is the 2021 recipient of the Society of American Archaeologists, Robert S. Peabody Institute of Archaeology Award for Archaeology and Education. Mr. Heglar is also a lead instructor for DWB's Maritime Association of Diving Instructors. Jay's current work involves the documentation of World War II Tuskegee Airmen aircraft in the Great Lakes. Jay is serving as one of the 3 co-chairs of the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Project here in Port Huron, Michigan. We have Mr. Eric Denson is currently the electrical chief engineer for the engineering directorate at the Kennedy Space Center. Eric joined NASA in 1990 and has 30 years design and development experience on voice, video, data, and command and control systems. He has received many awards, including NASA's Exceptional Service Medal, Silver Snoopy, and KSC's Equal Opportunity Award. Eric is also the co-founder and president of Divers Orlando, a national association of Black scuba divers affiliate. Eric has been a certified diver since 1992 and logged over 800 dives worldwide. Wow. Eric is a PADI dive master and a member of the National Association of Black Scuba Divers Hall of Fame. Mr. Denson is a board member and lead instructor for the Diving with a Purpose Maritime Archaeology. Eric, along with Jay, are serving as one of 3 co-chairs for the Tuskegee Airmen Project here in Port Huron. We are so very happy to have Mr. Eric with us on this afternoon. And we also have Mr. Theo Kahulas. He is the Executive Director of Innovation and Operations at Port Huron Schools. His main focus over the last 4 years was supporting the $106 million 2016 bond projects. He is also a part of the team that champions the district's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration and Black History Month. He is very proud of the district's partnership with the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Project and knows this work will inspire many of our youth for years to come. And last but not least, we have our lovely Miss Anita Ashford. She's a lifelong resident here at the city of Port Huron and currently serves on the Port Huron City Council and the Michigan Black Council of Local Elected Official as secretary of the organization. She has extensive political affiliations ranging from local, regional, and national. She is employed with DT Energy as a continuous improvement expert and currently focuses on workplace safety and COVID-19 outreach for DTE employees. Anita's connection with the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Project has been serving in the capacity of coordinating lead, working with our 3 co-chairs. We are so very happy to have all of you with us today, and I am going to jump in, and we have so many questions about this historical and honorable event. First of all, what is Diving with a Purpose?
Yes, first of all, Jessica, thank you for inviting us and helping us tell this important story. Diving with a Purpose is a leading international organization that provides education and training programs, and we do mission leadership and program services for submerged heritage resource preservation and conservation. And we do this with projects worldwide, and we have a focus on the African diaspora. We actually run a field school, so we teach maritime archaeology and we do ocean conservation. And that ocean conservation is in the form of coral reef restoration. So those are the 2 things that we do. And we provide field experiences as well as certification to adults and youth.
Wow, that is amazing. And so who are the Tuskegee Airmen?
Yes, hi, Jessica. I'll take that one. And thanks again for having us.
Thank you.
So the Tuskegee Aviation Experience, as it was called, was the Army Air Corps program to train the nation's first African-American military aviators to fly, also to fight, maintain combat aircraft, and in an effort to win World War II. They trained at then Tuskegee Institute, which is now Tuskegee University in Alabama. But the group included more than just pilots. It included navigators, bombardiers, mechanics, nurses, crew chiefs, cooks, and all of the support personnel who kept the planes and pilots in the air. And these were all Black individuals in the service. And back then, we got to remember too, there was no Air Force. So this was part of the Army Air Corps. Again, the effort was considered a military experiment, but these young individuals, courageous individuals, made it a great success. The airmen overcame segregation and prejudice to become one of the most highly respected fighter groups of World War II. They were actually requested to support bombardiers into Europe and other areas. They flew over 15,000 sortie missions, destroying a lot of access equipment and logistical supplies. And they flew the longest combat escort mission of the war and earned the title Red Tails, and for the heroic protection of the American bombers in their red-tailed P-51 aircraft.
Okay, Jessica, this is Anita Ashford. Can you give us just a little snapshot on where is the home, considered the home of the Tuskegee Airmen? What state is that?
Well, again, their training originated in Tuskegee University, which is in the state of Alabama, and that's where they originated. But to go even further than that, little did we know when I first started this project, but during the middle years of the World War II, Michigan was home to several of the Tuskegee Airmen African-American combat units. And within months of completing their training in Alabama, many of them, including the 332nd Fighter Group, went to air bases around the United States, and that included the Michigan area. And why Michigan? Michigan, the terrain and climate mimicked the European theater. So that gave them advanced training. So when they went over to Europe, they would be accustomed to that environment. And many of them trained at Selfridge and Camp Skill in that area.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring that out. I thought that was significant because here in the city of Port Huron, we did have one that Frank Cooper was his name. Haven't got a lot on him yet, but he also was one of the affiliated with the Tuskegee Airmen. Thank you.
Wow, that is just amazing. The history, and to know that our young people have access to this history is honorable. And how did you all get involved with the Tuskegee Airmen project in terms of, how was the plane found? Can you give some background?
Yeah, I'll take that one too, Jessica. So in that area, the Tuskegee Airmen, the Tuskegee Airmen are known for flying the famous P-51 Mustangs, but the primary aircraft used up there in the Michigan area was called the P-39 Airacobra. And 2 Tuskegee Airmen plane wrecks were discovered in the Michigan area. One wreck was located in Lake Huron and the other in the St. Clair River. And the Lake Huron wreck was flown by Lieutenant Frank Moody, and which was discovered in the lower end of Lake Huron in the north city of Port Huron in about 30 feet of water. He was originally from Oklahoma, and he entered the United States Army and graduated from Tuskegee in February 8th, 1944. And he came out of the Selfridge base in Michigan. So in August of 2015, a small team consisting of members of Diving with a Purpose, Maritime Archaeology Program, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and along with the state of Michigan, was assembled to explore Lieutenant Moody's site and document that wreck.
And I thank you for sending over those artifacts, because it just kind of remind me of like the Titanic. I mean, it was like, wow. There was some beautiful artifacts that were included in this. And what was discovered during the wreck? Can you name some of the pieces?
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go back, I kind of missed one part. Before Jay probably talks about the artifacts, I didn't talk a little bit how the plane was found. And again, it was a P-39 flown by Lieutenant Frank Moody, but it was actually found by David Luzinski, who was a member of the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. And he actually thought he found part of a car. One of the artifacts that Jay will probably mention was a cockpit door, and it kind of looked like a door from a Volkswagen Bug. Subsequently, he found a little bit more artifacts and knew it wasn't a car. And interesting enough, he discovered the wreckage of the aircraft April 11th of 2014. And it was exactly 70 years to the day of his accident. So it was almost like it was time for Lieutenant Moody's story to be told. And then subsequently, he contacted Michigan State archaeologist Wayne Lusardi, who works at the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary in Alpena. And we've done a lot of work with Wayne and Noah, and he knew that we would be interested in participating in this project. So he contacted us, members of DWP, and asked us to actually participate in that mission. And in 2015, in August, like I mentioned, a small group of us started that mission to document his wreck site.
You think you're excited when Jay and Eric tell this story to kids? It's like a pin drop in there. They own those kids' attention. They are so passionate about this, and the kids eat it up. So you think us as adults love this? You should see middle schoolers. So I want to throw that in there.
Yeah.
And what were some of the artifacts that were found? Because I looked at the pictures, I'm like, to see that up close, I can only imagine the feeling.
Yes, it was pretty amazing. And some of the artifacts that were found was, as Eric mentioned, the cockpit door, actually the engine block. And we actually found machine guns, 50 caliber machine guns that were mounted into the plane, as well as the munitions. The wing section was really exciting because the wing section was pretty much intact. The cold water preserved all the artifacts really well, so much so that on the wing section, the Army insignia can be still seen on that wing. And the landing gear with the tires, the rubber tires were still intact. You could still touch the rubber. One of the most exciting things that we found in terms of the artifact was the radio call box. And let me explain a little bit about the radio call box. It's the instrumentation panel. Even to this day, when pilots graduate from flight school, they are assigned a plane, all right? And in that assignment of a plane, they're literally given a radio call number. It's a unique number, like a Social Security number. And in Frank Moody's case, his radio call sign was 221226. And we found that number on the radio call box in its original form. So this is how we were able to trace the records of this plane back to Second Lieutenant Frank Herman Moody. So that was an extremely exciting find. It's as if, finding a treasure with, you have a treasure map and you find the treasure and it actually has, exactly what's in it, exactly who owned it. So it was very, very exciting. So these are some of the artifacts that were found at the site.
Wow, I could just sit here and talk about this for hours. This is awesome. So when we talk about the plans for the memorial dedication, what does that look like for all of you?
Well, first of all, the memorial dedication is centered around, this year is the 80th anniversary of the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen was formally formed in 1941. President Franklin D. Roosevelt actually back in 1938, Franklin D. Roosevelt actually made a declaration that he would expand the civilian pilot training program. And doing that one act opened up an opportunity for African Americans to come and actually become pilots. And so in 1941 is when formally the training program started in Tuskegee, Alabama. So this year is the 40th anniversary of the Tuskegee Airmen. So it's very historic. So there will be events leading up to the dedication. So events like this one, there will be spotlights. There will be several events throughout this year that actually highlights and lets the community know about the Tuskegee Airmen, more importantly, about who Second Lieutenant Frank Herman Moody was. And so with these events will culminate with the dedication of the memorial on August 28th of this year in International Flag Plaza. There will be a memorial erected in the International Flag Plaza that actually is dedicated to all of the Tuskegee Airmen that lost their lives in pursuit of defense of our country in World War II. So this brings up a lot of awareness in the community, particularly in the city of Port Huron, where just knowing about this historic figure actually coming up in the city of Port Huron and St. Clair County is very, very important. Which leads me to how we kind of got involved with this, and the city of Port Huron, St. Clair County, as well as the state of Michigan. DWP, as a result of that work that we did with Wayne Lasardi, we wanted to do more. We felt that it was very important to tell Frank Moody's story. We thought it was very important to tell the story of the Tuskegee Airmen in Michigan. So we contacted the city council, Port Huron, and more specifically Councilman Ashford, to make a request and proposal for the memorial to go in Port Huron. And so we made a presentation in 2018 to the city council, and Councilman Ashford really has been a champion of that effort. And then that's how we got the city involved. And I will kind of turn it over to Councilman Ashford to tell a little bit more about how it was received and what's going on in the community.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Yeah, at the council meeting that night in 2018, and as you know, I was sitting there at the end of where I usually sit at, and I saw these two young African American males. I said, I wonder what they're doing. I hadn't checked over my paper. They look so distinguished, and lo and behold, I lift up my paper that night, and it says DWP, Diving with a Purpose. And so I didn't have time to really scan it because I just really wanted to give them my attention. And when they brought that excellent presentation before us, we had no idea. And it's not, and I'm a Black person or African American, whatever you want to call us, but I thought I should have known that. And so just that presentation, it informed us, it educated us, and then they came along with this request to erect this monument, and my mind was I was just ecstatic. I don't know, it was just so overwhelming to be in that place, and it just wasn't selfishly like for me, but I kept thinking of, wow, Port Huron, we get a chance to, have this outstanding history, this legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen, because I think mostly every Black family I know in America, that's what our dads, talked about all the time, that we grew up with our inspiration. It wasn't, Mickey Mouse or anything. It was just that, you got to do something with your lives, and look at the Tuskegee Airmen. And my dad was that. He was a veteran, and he drilled that. It was 8 of us. He drilled that into our heads. So it was an opportunity for me as a human being, a person of color, to be involved, to ensure that in some way, in the space that I have as a public servant and a leader, to try to make a difference for all of us here in the city of Port Huron. And I tell you, Jessica and Theo and Jay and Eric, and the first thing we did, we put together a committee, and it hasn't been all easy, but Jay and them, we worked together, and and we picked that up. But it's just been remarkable. Everyone, we got inclusiveness from partners such as, and I'm gonna turn this over to Theo, with the students, because we cannot leave out our students, because you leave that out, you cut short that legacy going forward. So Theo, why don't you pick it up from here?
Yeah, and a perfect segue, Ms. Ashford, because Jessica, when I got introduced to the project, Anita called me, and I could hear that passion in her voice, immediately about this passion that we just heard. And I think it was back in February, Anita had set up bringing Jay and Eric and Dr. Ayana Llewellyn, or Professor Llewellyn, to Central Middle School, and what an amazing experience these individuals brought there. In the bio, we've got a media center filled with middle school students, and they're in the presence. And these three that I'm on the panel with are humble. But we've got two NASA engineers and a woman who worked with Rosa Parks. I mean, we've got mountains in front of these kids, and it was just an amazing experience. And to hear the passion of these three, like I said, you could hear a pin drop in there. The stories, and it could have went. We could have listened to them all day and all week. I was sad to see them go. I remember afterwards, as adults, us talking like, "What are we doing with our lives? Because these people are really doing a lot. What are we doing?" But I only say that for this: there were kids in that room, sitting on the floor, looking up and truly inspired. You could see it in their eyes. You could see in their eyes that maybe I could do that one day. Maybe I could do that one day. So from the Port Huron Schools, we just appreciate you coming in that day in February and spending time with our young people and inspiring them. And I bet you any money that 10 years from now, one of them is going to say, I'm doing what I'm doing because of what I heard that day. It was
Absolutely.
So fast forward to today, we really thank our partnership with the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Project. They've actually, and I'm sure Ms. Ashford had the behind the scenes work on this, but they've challenged the school district with an essay writing contest for all of our middle school kids at all three of our middle schools. An essay contest about the Tuskegee Airmen. I know the kids are excited. I think the grand prize is $250, and the second prize is $150. The third prize is $100. But more importantly, the learning about things that happen right here, on our river and in our lake. I know when you all spoke to the kids that this just happened, in the lake that off the beach that you go to sometimes in the summer. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in that room. It was great. So we look forward on May. That's the deadline for the essay, and look forward to seeing what the kids write. And I'm sure more will come from that. We'll be sharing some of the great essays with Jay and Eric, and maybe even have some sort of involvement in August at the dedication. So we look forward to that. We're really grateful to be a part of this as Port Huron School.
Thanks, Theo.
And I want to piggyback on something that Anita said. When I received the artifacts, I went straight into like elementary mode myself, because as an African American, a Black American, knowing that this rich history is at our fingertips, and we may not, even I have children now, knowing that they need to be exposed to such rich history, that they know that our ancestors and the history that paved the way for the opportunities that we have today, we need to have this a part of the memorial, that our children can appreciate their rich history.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's so incredibly important. And I commend all of you for working so hard to bring this memorial to the forefront in Port Huron, because we need to be educated. We need to tell the stories that are buried underneath so many chapters of Black history, and not just wait till Black history to unveil these stories, but year round, so that our children can be exposed and proud for where they come from. And a lot of you have already mentioned, and I think that you, Jay, I think you mentioned about the remains of the aircraft.
One of the things that relative to the actual artifacts, most of them actually are still submerged underwater. We've actually brought some artifacts up, and they are currently being curated at the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and then they will eventually go to the National Museum, Tuskegee Airmen Museum, located in Detroit, Michigan. And this is the plan for the rest of those artifacts to be actually brought up and curated, and then they will reside permanently at the National Museum of Tuskegee Airmen Museum in Detroit. So that's the future of that, and that's just one story. The actual Next story is this. There literally are 5 Tuskegee Airmen whose plane crashed in the Great Lakes, 4 of which are in Lake Huron. All right. So this is not the end of the story. We have located, Frank H. Moody has been located, and another Flight Officer Nathaniel Rayberg, his plane was located in the St. Clair River. And that will be our next project. But there are literally 3 more planes that are still submerged, waiting for their stories to be told. So relative to the future is that we look to actually search for, find, and document those stories so that it's a complete story of the Tuskegee Airmen in Michigan, of Alabama in Michigan. Really, really important, and important to make sure that everybody understands that this is an American story. This is as much as it's an African American story, it's an American story, and understanding the impact that these heroes made. Literally, what we call, they helped create a new world, because the World War II was a pivotal point, on a global scale. And Tuskegee Airmen were very, very instrumental in actually really, really help forming the new world, creating the new world and the society that we have today. So these brave, courageous, heroic men defied all of the odds, fighting not only for their country, but fighting for their own place in 1940s America. So that story is an American story that should be told, and we like and we think that it would serve as an inspiration to young folk, because young people are our future. And so those are the things that the future plans for the remains of Frank H. Moody. And then there are plans to continue the search so that we can tell more of the story.
Jessica, this is Anita. Just as a footnote, and I don't know if Jay and Eric know this, but all the artifacts, the Tuskegee folks out of Detroit, the National Museum, has now been relocated to the Charles H. Wright Museum permanently.
Yes.
So
yes.
all of that, all those artifacts that Jay and Eric made reference to, it will be on display at the Charles H. Wright Museum in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, and then the actual dedication for that new museum piece was just a couple of days ago, and it was really, really a beautiful museum. And like Anita and Jay said, that one of the things that that's planning to do, Dr. Brian Smith, who's the director, he actually holds permits for the artifact recovery and eventual display in the museum. And he's been very instrumental on this phase of the project, actually recovering artifacts and eventual display. And there are actually plans for, hopefully if things go well, early part of August, before the memorial dedication, we may have missions to recover more artifacts. And we're hoping too, as those artifacts are recovered, we may have some on display during the dedication ceremonies. So that's the plan to this. It makes it a little bit more exciting.
Right, yeah. And he did speak about that to both us, Eric, on the panel there, that wouldn't it be awesome? They're out there diving and we're having this, and they're coming up with another piece of artifact. So, wow, that's all I could think of. It's just great.
I'm wondering if there could be a movie of some sort.
Well, girl,
and you all get started.
In Hollywood, here we come. Okay, Theo.
I'll just drive you all out there. You're the superstars. I'll just drive.
Oh, no.
All of you.
No,
all
we're
of
in
you
this
all.
Together.
Yes, you're doing beautiful work. Beautiful work. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this panelist. It's such rich history. Again, we could sit here and talk for hours. Thank you for making our history for all Americans what we all need to know and understand and appreciate from each other. And we want to thank all of you for joining us today for our Fireside Chat, and we hope that you all have a wonderful afternoon.
I remember when he used to tell me stories. He'd lift me up and place me gently on his knee. You know his eyes would come alive with every tale he told, and every word he said was gold to me. Said he was lucky as a young man, got to live his childhood fantasy. Learned to fly with his friends on a field in Alabama. They became the best the world had seen. And he said, all I ever wanted was a moment in the sun. Don't make me hang around down on the ground when the battle has begun. Let me fly away. Let me ride on silver wings across the sky. Let me try today. We can make a difference if we work together. Let me fly. I asked him all about his red-tailed airplane. He used to roam the skies of Italy, making sure that every friend would make it through the fire, and he'd never let one fall into the sea. And he said, all I ever wanted was a moment in the sun. Don't make me hang around down on the ground when the battle has begun. Let me fly. Let me fly away. Let me ride on silver wings across the sky. Let me try today. We can make a difference if we work together. Let me fly. God in heaven above, won't you hear my humble prayer when I join the battle? Go before me. Don't keep me from danger or hide me from the foe. All I'm asking for is the strength, oh Lord, to make it through the night. Make me hang around down on the ground when the battle has begun. Let me fly.